State's Exhibit 987. This is the State's Exhibit 1050, your report, where you explain the entrance and the associated abrasions underneath the chin. Is that correct?
Yes.
You said that his chin and his face would have been forward. Is that correct?
Chin down, yes.
Okay. With the trajectory at that point being from a forward position or over to the right, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now on that matter here, is this wound number 4 an antemortem wound?
Yes.
Again, that's pre-mortem, pre-death. Is that
Pre-death,
correct?
yes.
So when that occurred, that was prior to death, correct?
Correct.
And then the wound number 3, this is an item that we had discussed. State's Exhibit number 989, this picture that you're pointing out to us, that fuzz on the neck. Have you had the opportunity, when you were doing the autopsy, to collect all of the bullets and fragments from the body and to catalog them?
Yes.
Is that correct? And did you use envelopes when you did so?
Yes.
And did you sign off on those envelopes?
I did.
Okay, showing you State's Exhibit number 16?
Yes. Items from.
And the items from State's Exhibit 16. Have you reviewed these prior to testifying today?
Yes.
Okay. And are these those envelopes that you had collected the items from, the bullet fragments?
Yes.
Okay. And your name is on the front of them, and all of the notations about where you collected them are on the front. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you the envelope called Item 192. Do you see that blue sticker, 192?
I do.
Now, that's not your sticker, is that correct?
That is not my sticker.
But do you recognize your name on the front of that envelope?
Yes.
And did you do the handwriting on the front of this?
Yes.
Okay. And is your signature affixed to the back of it?
Yes.
Okay. At what time did you seal this envelope?
5:22 p.m.
Okay. And what would this envelope contain? This item 192 of State's Exhibit 16.
This envelope contains the gray-white fuzzy material and the projectile fragment that were recovered from this wound on the left neck.
On the neck, correct?
Yes.
So, opening this item 192 from State's Exhibit 16, you would suspect then that inside of that would contain what?
Gray-white fuzzy material and a projectile fragment.
Okay. Okay, and the State's Exhibit 16.
Yes.
Okay.
I see the projectile fragment.
Okay, and we'll take that out with some gloves. You see the projectile fragment that's listed in here? See that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now this has some tape on it from BCI, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, in Richfield, is that right?
Yes.
All right, thank you. This material, you collected it and had a picture taken of it, is that correct?
Yes.
showing this item 192 here. This is the material that you're speaking of. It came from the neck area, is that correct?
Yes.
With the fragment, correct?
Correct.
And we're on to item number 9. That's what we were about to discuss. It's a perforated gunshot wound of the left face. Do you see that on your exhibit 1050 on page 4?
Yes.
What can you tell us about this wound of the left face?
This wound is from a projectile which enters the left cheek in a left to right direction and exits through the oral mucosa of the left cheek on the inside of the left cheek. There is fuzzy material also embedded in this wound.
Showing State's Exhibit number 985. What is this picture of?
State's Exhibit 985 is a dirty photo of the left side of Timothy Russell's face, showing the white fuzzy material that is embedded in the left cheek wound, which is documented in my report as wound number 9.
And did you pull that material out?
Yes.
Okay. Is that an entrance wound or an exit wound on the outside of the left face?
It's an entrance.
And how do you know that?
In association with wound number 3, these two wounds have the white fuzzy material in them, and the fuzzy material was embedded on the outside of this wound, indicating to me the directionality of wounds 3 and wounds 9 are the same, left to right. So it enters the outside of the cheek and passes through the inside of the cheek.
Okay. And when you pulled it out from the outside or from
Yes,
the inside?
from the
From
outside.
the outside. Right. And that was collected as well?
Yes.
And this is the cleaned up portion, is that correct, where you pulled it out?
Yes, this
State's
photograph.
Exhibit 989.
State's Exhibit 989 is a cleaned up image of the left side of the face with that wound after the fuzzy material has been removed.
All right, now, as far as the positioning of this wound and the lethality, can you tell us where the wound would have been placed in relation to Malissa Williams' coat, exhibit number 81?
Similar to wound number 3 of the left neck, wound number 9 together with wound number 3 indicate that at the time these wounds happened, Timothy Russell was turned, his head was turned facing the passenger door, and he was at least partially behind Malissa Williams, either her body or perhaps just her left arm. There are several defects in the left arm of her jacket and the left upper back portion of her jacket, which could account for the white fuzzy material being transferred.
Doctor, can you come down from the stand and show us the positioning that you're talking about as it relates to the neck wound and the cheek wound in relation to State's Exhibit number 81, coat of one by Malissa Williams. Pictures.
All right, so Timothy Russell,
Yes.
Malissa Williams.
Correct.
In the scene photographs, he is slightly behind her, and she is a little bit turned to her right. And his face needs to turn to the other way, towards the window, as if you're looking out the passenger window over here. Yes, and down. This sort of position of his head down and turned towards the right would allow for any of these holes in her jacket.
Point them out to us again.
He's on the left upper back and the left sleeve to allow for transfer of that fuzzy material into his left neck and left cheek.
And you placed Ms. Royster in a position with her body turned to the right. Is that consistent with what you observed at the time that you were at the crime scene?
Yes.
And Mr. Gutierrez here, can you explain to us in this position, as it relates to the coat here, where that fuzzy material would have come from, pointing to us Ms. Royster's body?
Depending on how much movement varies between the two of them, she's a little bit further away or a little bit further over. The holes on her jacket from the shoulder area to approximately the elbow, depending if her arm is up or down, any of those holes could correspond to transfer of material from her coat into his cheek or left neck.
Okay. And now wound number 4 that you talked about with the abrasions underneath, that is an ante-mortem wound, is that correct?
Yes.
Pre-death?
Yes.
And wound number 1 and 2 are as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you find any corresponding wounds in your review of Malissa Williams' autopsy records?
For these wounds?
That's
3 and
correct.
9?
3 and 9, the
Yes.
cheek and the neck.
In Malissa Williams' autopsy, there are several perforating wounds of the left upper arm. So the transfer of material into Timothy Williams' neck and cheek could come from a projectile that just passes through the jacket itself, or a projectile that passes through the jacket and through Malissa Williams' arm and out.
Okay.
Either possibility.
And the significance of this position here, the trajectories on wound number 1 would be from what position?
If Timothy Russell's head is in this position, wound 1 would come. It would have to come almost through the roof of the car. When 1 and 2 impact his head, he's probably more forward, not behind her so much.
So these wounds that we're discussing here, that is the wounds that relate to the cheek and the neck,
Yes.
are those, they're ante-mortem, are they before wound 1 or before wound 2?
Likely they are before wound 2, because wound 2 will not allow him to then position himself down and behind her. After sustaining wound 2, he's not moving. So 3 and 9 came before 2.
Yes. So prior to that, those shots right there, 4, 3, 9, ante-mortem.
Yes.
So those are pre-death.
Yes.
Thank you. And the positions that you were just discussing, the trajectory for the wound 1 and wound 2, as it is 4, would come from which position? Where would the shots be coming from?
It depends on Timothy Russell's position. If he's sitting up in the driver's seat and he gets wounds 1 and 2 while he's sitting, they would have had to have come through the roof of the car.
You would expect to find
There
bullet holes
would
there?
be bullet holes in the roof of the car, and there are not bullet holes in the roof of the car. So given the amount of maneuvering that he can do as in that confined space, most likely, because we know his chin is down in 4, if you put his chin down, then that allows these wounds to come through the windshield, through an elevated position, or if he's turned to the right when he sustains 3 and 9, they would have to come either through the roof of the car or high up on the passenger windows in order to get the path that they have in the brain.
Consistent with someone being on the hood or on the trunk or roof of Zone Car 238?
Is Zone Car 238 the car that is touching the Malibu?
Yes, you were at the scene, correct?
Yes,
And you've reviewed the pictures, is that correct?
Yes.
You've seen these 3 cars, is
Yes.
that correct? If this is Zone Car 238, my questions are, and you explained that it either is from the windshield, or if the head's turned in the position from an elevated position. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would that be consistent with shots from the roof or from the trunk?
Yes.
And if his head is in a forward position with the abrasions down, it's consistent with being frontward from the windshield. Is that correct?
It could be, yes.
Thank you. And then item number 10, room number 10, on exhibit 1050.
Wound number 10 is a grazing gunshot wound of the left shoulder. It is non-lethal. It injures skin and subcutaneous soft tissues. It's a superficial wound.
And number 11.
11 is a perforating gunshot wound, meaning there is an entrance and an exit and no bullet was recovered. It is also a superficial wound in that it does not enter the chest cavity or the abdominal cavity and does not injure any vital organs. It goes through the skin, subcutaneous soft tissues, and back out the skin.
Okay. And this is exhibited in State's Exhibit 988A, is that correct?
The entrance and exit wounds are there in Exhibit 988A. They are not where that silver rod is.
Yes.
They are the 2 wounds that are nearest the middle of the photograph.
Okay. And did you place this instrument in there to show that direction?
I did, yes.
And what position would the body have to be to make that type of wound? In, out, in, out?
The rod is indicating a complex wound, which is an entry, an exit, and a re-entry. That is not wound 11. Just to be clear, we're skipping. The rod is wound 15E.
Okay. My apologies. So wound 11, let's finish up with that.
Okay. Wound 11 is just a superficial in the skin, out the skin.
Okay, and that's where I was confused, so my apologies. Then wound number 12, perforating grazing gunshot wound of the left thigh.
Yes.
On page 4 of your report.
This is also a superficial wound. Does not break any bones or hit any vital organs.
When you say trajectory is indeterminate, what does that mean?
That means that there was not enough information with the wound. There was not enough, there were not enough characteristics on the surface of the skin to allow me to determine if this is right to left or up and down. This injury appears to be an impact of a projectile fragment that does not penetrate in very far and just sort of bounces back off.
And you had the same notation for wound 10 as you did for 12. Trajectory is indeterminate, is that correct?
Yes, and that is often the case with grazing wounds that just sort of make an abrasion or sort of a deep, shallow laceration on the skin.
And then back to this exhibit of your autopsy, wound 11 is a downward, is that correct?
Yes, wound 11 is downward.
Right to left?
Yes.
Okay. And moving on to 13, can you tell us about this wound?
Wound number 13 is a perforating wound of the right hand. It enters the back of the hand and exits the palm.
And the back, just what we call the back, correct there? Exhibit number 992?
Yes.
Okay. And then goes all the way through, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there anything significant about that wound and the positioning of that?
Other than it being an antemortem wound, no.
And that is a pre-death as well,
Yes.
correct? Wound number 13. Perforating gunshot wound of the right hand. Non-lethal, correct?
It is non-lethal, correct.
Okay, so 12 and 13, both of the hand, or 13 of the hand is non-lethal, and 14 of the hand as well?
Also non-lethal, correct.
Okay. And this is the perforating grazing gunshot wound in the right hand, showing you State's Exhibit 992. That is depicted in that wound, correct? That picture there?
Yes, on the fingers.
Okay.
Yes.
And then 991. Is it depicted there as well?
Yes. This is a photograph of the right hand, the small finger being nearest the bottom of the photograph.
Yes.
And then the ring finger, and then the middle finger being nearest the top of the photograph. The injury that is at the base of the middle finger is part of wound number 14.
Okay. The State's Exhibit 1050, your autopsy report has an item 15 with a number of sub-items under that. Is that correct?
Yes.
These have are a number of wounds?
Yes.
According to your report, there are 9. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you label them as subcategories 15?
These are 9 penetrating wounds, which means the projectiles enter the body and do not leave. However, once they enter the abdominal cavity, the organs can move and the wound tracks are less prominent than, say, through lung tissue or through the heart would be. So the wound tracks of these 9 wounds are somewhat overlapping and indistinguishable from each other. So there was not a way for me to definitively say that this liver injury is because of this entrance wound, and the overlapping nature of them caused me to organize them as such. So they're all labeled as number 15 with the following letter. The letter is a designation for the entrance wound and any particular distinct injury that is definitively associated with that entrance wound.
Okay. So the letter A, penetrating gunshot wound of the left upper chest, you have a trajectory on that.
Yes.
And
The trajectory is downward into the abdominal cavity and front to back.
Okay. And item B,
Penetrating gunshot wound of left upper chest, also downward, also front to back. Additionally, I was able to determine that this bullet pathway was left to right because of the discrete injuries that were associated with this wound track.
okay. And again, left to right, is that correct?
Left to right, yes.
Is this a steep wound?
Yes.
And item 15C, by the way, was during this shot here, item 15B, is this a fatal wound?
Yes.
How long would he have survived with just this wound?
Could have been as short as a few seconds, could have been long as several seconds to a minute, maybe. It depends. It's hard to estimate times like this when there's so many wounds, and this is not the only injury of the heart.
So he was alive at this time when he sustained wounds number 1 and 2?
A and B?
Yes.
Yes, he's alive.
Item C, penetrating gunshot wound of the right upper chest, medial pectoral. Is this a lethal wound as well?
Yes, this wound injures the heart as well, or this wound path involves the heart.
Is it an antemortem wound?
Yes.
And the trajectory?
Downward into the abdominal cavity, front to back, and right to left.
Okay. And again, would he be alive at the time of sustaining gunshot wounds 1 and 2?
Yes.
And item D, penetrating gunshot wound of left lower medial chest.
Yes. This injury, this bullet path doesn't hit anything before entering the abdomen that allows me to tie a discrete injury to this entrance other than the wound, the entrance wound itself, lacerations of skin and subcutaneous soft tissues. It also, like the others, goes front to back and downward into the abdominal cavity.
So A, B, C, and D are all downward, front to back,
Yes.
all antemortem.
Yes.
And 15E,
15E, like the preceding 4, also is downward into the abdominal cavity and is front to back. This is the injury that was depicted in that previous photo that we showed with the silver rod showing the in, out, and back in nature of this wound.
okay, so we have that back up on the screen, State's Exhibit 988A.
Yes,
And again, you placed that rod there?
I did.
Okay. Is this a lethal wound?
It is potentially lethal. Yes.
And is it, like the others, downward, right to left, front to back?
Yes.
So 15 A, B, C, D, E, all the same?
They are all downward and front to back,
Front to
yes.
back. Okay, thank you. What is significant about this this wound here? How would the body have been?
The irregularity of this entrance wound with the entrance, exit, and re-entry indicate that this is a very tangential shot. It's a very steep angle, and most likely Timothy Russell his body was bent in a forward position when this bullet hit him. He was bent forward.
And for the record, you're showing us that bent forward position in your seat, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you said steep. What do you mean by that?
It is at a very steep angle. Tangential is a better word because the projectile is coming in very nearly parallel to his skin as it enters and goes down.
Is that also consistent from a downward trajectory, as you were talking before, from the hood or for the roof of the Malibu and respectively the Zone Car 238?
More consistent with perhaps the hood of the Malibu rather than the Zone Car, the trunk or whatever.
Okay.
Yes.
And we're discussing 15E. Is that anti-mortem wound?
Yes.
That's pre-death?
Yes.
And as you said, potentially lethal, is that correct?
Potentially lethal, yes, because it injures the liver.
15F. It's the penetrating gunshot wound of the left lower chest, is that correct?
Yes.
What is the trajectory of this gunshot wound?
Also downward into the abdominal cavity and front to back.
Is there a direction of travel on that one?
That is not able to be known from the injuries that we're seeing. It went through the stomach, but it did not distinctly go through anything that allowed me to determine right-left deviation.
Okay. And then 15G.
15G goes in the right upper abdomen.
Called the penetrating gunshot wound of the right upper abdomen.
Yes.
And what is the trajectory on this one?
Downward and front to back.
Okay. And I, penetrating gunshot wound of the midline upper abdomen.
Also downward and front to back.
F, G, H, and I, all anti-mortem?
Yes.
Pre-death? So again, showing you the mannequin here in the middle of the room. You have those numbers, 15s, all listed, is that correct?
Yes.
A, B, C, D, E, H, I, is that correct?
Yes.
All of these are wounds, with the exception of the potential.
15B
Yes?
and 15C
Yes.
are the two that injure the heart.
Yes.
So I would classify those two alone with no other wound as lethal. The remaining A and D through I, the liver, the small intestine, the large intestine, the right kidney, the left kidney, the lumbar spine, and left rib 11, collectively potentially lethal. Say D is and E is not.
So collectively, the others would contribute to the cause of death.
Yes.
No objection, Your Honor. That last question.
Noted and overruled. But on a related subject, for all of A and D, to put it another way, what you're saying is it could be that only one of those projectiles caused damage because you can't figure exactly where the projectiles represented by the letter of an entrance wound wound up.
Right, after they got into the abdomen, right?
Okay. Thank you for answering my question. Sorry for interrupting.
Each of these, doctor, are pre-mortem, is that correct?
Yes.
You have some blunt and force noted as well.
Yes.
As it relates to what were the findings of the internal examination?
There was blood in his chest cavities and in his abdominal cavity, consistent with the wound tracks that we've already discussed. His organs overall appeared to be healthy. He did not have significant any significant evidence of natural disease that could have been responsible for his death. So really the significant findings on internal examination were the injuries that were associated with the wound tracks we've already talked about.
Okay. And how much blood was found in the chest cavities?
There was approximately 600 milliliters in the right chest and 200 milliliters of blood in the left chest, 100 milliliters mixed with intestinal contents in the abdomen.
And that's all here on internal examination, paragraph page 7.
Yes.
What's significant about in the cavities?
Blood in the cavities of this amount indicates that the heart was beating for a period of time after injuries were sustained. There was not a long internal because relative amounts of blood that are in his cavities are small-ish on the small side. I have seen cases where there's blood in his cavity, gunshot wound.
Time, and
Yes.
you know how much time, as you explained before, the gunshot wound 15B and 15 pre-mortem. Did both of them hit the heart?
15C injured the heart.
Okay.
For a short time, because there is bleeding and with these wounds.
Okay. And then how?
Well, the heart beat 60 milliliters is output each time it beats. With these injuries, not all is going to be still in circulation. Some of it's going to be so multiply the amount that is leaking out by this amount of blood. He could have been alive for a couple of minutes, maybe.
He had been shot at 15 C. Be able to drive a car?
Potentially, yes.
Will you be able to steer the car,
Yes.
accelerate,
Yes.
and still be alive? Being after sustaining other injuries, correct?
For a short time.
From your testimony,
Wound number 2. Dies almost immediately. He stops breathing. His heart stops beating. So wound number 2, yes, is most last incurred. About, like, for example, the left cheek, left. If number came before 3 and 9, if you told the order, I would say for 3 and 9 to happen, he has to be turned the passenger, and he can't turn and face the passenger door after number 2. Does that make sense?
immediate or close to immediate?
Yes.
And wound 1, would that have occurred before wound 2? Or soon after?
Okay. It would have been immediate, very rapid succession with wound 2.
Because of the
bruising and the hemorrhage that is associated with wound 1. If he sustains wound 2 and then 10 seconds later sustains wound 1 because he's slumped after wound 2, remember he's not moving, and wound 1 would not be hemorrhagic or have brain contusions.
and wound 1 is from the forward.
Most likely, yes, because there are no holes in the roof of the car.
So from the elevated position that you discussed?
Yes,
But not from the roof if there's no hole.
right.
So he
Yes.
Your Honor, let me ask the court, we are hoping that the television is not showing the autopsy photos of the victim's body on live stream, and we're asking that they not.
I would have no way of knowing.
Somebody told me they are, so I'm hoping they are not. And if there are photos of the victim deceased on the monopad, I would request of the television stations to turn to the questioner or the court or
Actually, nobody else read that either. If there is, that could be. If there's not, I think we could probably still.
we would just ask from this point forward, if an error has been made, that's human, we just from this point.
D'Angelo.
We would join that request, Your Honor.
All right, so if you could refrain this afternoon from focusing on the autopsy photos, how about the mannequin, you believe?
Just autopsy photos of a body. If there's a diagram or texting or something, that's just fine. Just of a body.
Okay. All right, so noted, and tell your colleagues if you would. The inquiry.
Very close to you.
Close to done entirely or done on Timothy Russell?
Done.
Well, I'm going to hear this in a second. Did you do the autopsy of Malissa Williams?
No.
Yeah, okay, then I think we should be able to finish your testimony today. I was thinking we still had Williams to go with this witness.
Thank you.
So we to go.
Thank you, Judge. We approached the witness for last time. And showing you Dr. State's exhibits number 144 and 145. Familiar with these pictures, 144 and 145?
Yes.
What do they depict?
State's exhibits 144 and 1 seat of the Malibu.
And on the bottom of the seat and the backs of the seat, can you explain for the record what it is we can see?
These pictures show glass, pieces of foam on the back of the seats and blood staining.
You've seen that those cars, is that correct? You were there in the scene?
Yes.
Bodies of Timothy Russell and Malissa Williams. And after having reviewed the photographs and that we just showed you, as well as State Exhibit 983, where's the material that's on the back of the seats coming from?
It appears that the larger stain that is in those 144 and 145 is in continuity with blood that appears to be coming from Timothy Russell's left ear and running down his back. And then the smaller blood stain on the back of the seat is a little bit to the right of that, which would possibly be coming from the wound on his right.
Less red material on that side of the that you're discussing. Is it correct?
Yes.
this material that you're talking about coming out of his ear consistent with what you were testifying to earlier about the heart being a pump?
Yes, the blood left is because the bones that form the base of the brain are broken, and the middle ear are inside of those bones. When wounds go through and their pathways, they break these bones and allow blood to then escape from the ear.
Okay. And these were the antemortem wounds you testified to, correct?
Yes.
And the heart was still beating at that time, which would leave the blood that we're seeing in the back. Correct?
Yes. Now there would be some out, of course, but yes. Oozing.
Okay.
Correct.
Is that what we're talking about here, though?
This is more than oozing.
This is what?
This is heartbeat.
He's alive at the time that he was shot. Correct?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. You've been told this before, I'll repeat it. You remain under oath. We'll take a short break. We'll see you after that. Let's we'll start at 1:15. Thank you.